Kevin. First of all, I'll tell you what, why don't you turn around if your back is to me or if you're hiding behind the couch. Why don't you get to a position where you can see me? Okay, so tonight's Life Night is called Hunger. And I want to ask you, when was the last time you felt hungry? And I don't just mean physical hunger. I'm talking about a spiritual hunger. A hunger where we desire hunger to be loved. If you're like most people, it's probably something that's happened fairly recently. Because it's hardwired into our DNA as human beings to want to be loved. A kind of interesting fact about newborns. If they receive all the food and all the care they need physically to survive, but the parent never touches them, a newborn will actually die. You can die from a lack of love. To be loved is why God created us. Love, to be loved, is hardwired into our DNA. It's who we are. We all hunger for love. But then something happened. Adam and Eve really screwed it up for us. They made it incredibly difficult to know what love is. Because the moment Adam and Eve chomped into that apple, and they've got a little bit of apple juice dribbling down their face, they forever divided the human heart into a battlefield. In one half of our heart, we have the desire to love and to be loved, the way God created us. Right? And Kevin Parker gave us a great definition a few weeks ago as to what love is. Love is free. Right? See if you remember this. Love is free. No one can force you to love somebody. It's a free choice. Love is total. You give yourself totally to the other person. You hold nothing back. Love is faithful. Love is forever. It's not just a temporary commitment. It's forever, no matter what. And love is fruitful. Love always produces more love. That's the definition Christ himself gave us for what true love is. And that's the kind of love we desire in part of our heart. But then Adam and Eve introduced sin. And this caused us to start to prefer sin over love. And sin by its nature is selfish, where love is selfless. The Catechism defines sin as being where man prefers himself to God. Man prefers himself to God. It's us looking at God and saying, well, I see you, God, and screw you. I don't care what you think. That's what sin is. It's where we look at ourselves and say, I'm going to focus on me and what I want. And so there's this battle in our hearts between love and sin. And it can be very confusing. And it manifests itself in all different kinds of ways. And I think one of the ways our world sees this war going on is the debate about how we use sexual desire. It's a big issue in our world. What is the purpose of sexual desire? What are we supposed to do with it? And ultimately, is it connected to love? Because our church says one thing, and our world says something entirely different. And as a teenager, because this is what I was like when I was a teenager, it can be very confusing. How do you know what's right? How do you know what's wrong? And guys, what it comes down to is, what's going to feed that hunger? Because we all hunger for love. And what I would argue is, the path that feeds our hunger, that satisfies that hunger, that's what we should be doing. So what we're going to look at is we're going to look at what are the ways we can feed this hunger. What are the ways we can feed our hunger for love? Because ironically, the way we feed our spiritual hungers and our physical hungers are the same. We've got three options. Starvation, our first group. Junk food, our second group. And a home-cooked meal, our last group in the back. Those are the three options we have when it comes to feeding our hunger. So let's look at the first one, starvation. I've got a bulletin for you guys. If you don't eat, you're going to die. I know, that's rocket science, right? If you get hungry, your body is saying, I need to eat. And if you ignore that desire, guess what? You die. You can pretend it's not there, but sooner or later, you're going to die. And there are a lot of Christians that take this approach when it comes to their sexual desire. Because for whatever reason, sometimes we think that sex is a bad thing. Sometimes we think sexual desire is dirty. And so what we do is we repress it. We deny it. We bottle it up. And that's what a lot of Christians think they're supposed to do with their sexuality. Guys, that's a horrible idea. And that's not what our church teaches you should do with your sexual desire. Our church says sexual desire is a very good thing. It has a great place in God's plan of creation. Because the problem with denying or repressing your sexual desire is when you repress any emotion, it blows up. Think about anger. If you bottle up your anger, it could just be one small word that's going to send you flying off the handle. You'll explode. And this is why a lot of Christians that focus so much on bottling up or denying that sexual desire exists, when they get into a tempting situation, they explode and give in to that desire. Starvation is not the answer because it does not lead to fulfillment. It doesn't feed that hunger. Okay, so starvation's off the table. Let's move to the next category, junk food. Junk food. McDonald's. I gotta tell you, there are days when I'm driving home and I pass those double arches and I'm like, Big Mac, Coke. And I'm going through the drive-thru and I'm thinking to myself, I know this is bad for me. Put some extra cheese on that. And man, this is gonna make me fat. And I want